Hey everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I think some people are still trickling in, but I'm going to go ahead and just get started. My name is Colby Choi, and I'm a physical therapist at Spears Midtown West 44th Street location. I'm joined by my colleague today, Ryan Pena, who is a therapist at our Chambers Street location in Tribeca. Ryan, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn with us. For those of you who do not know, we are Spear, which is a private outpatient practice that has been around for over 20 years with currently 20 locations located all over the New York City area. We have successfully continued to offer in-person care throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as having launched Spear Live for those who are looking to stay in and receive care using our telehealth platform from the comfort of your own home. We are here for you in whichever way makes you feel most comfortable. If you're looking for individualized care, either in clinic or through telehealth, please reach out to us at your convenience and we'll get you set up for an appointment right away. So let's talk about some goals we'd like to accomplish for today. So today we are excited to be with you to discuss home and office ergonomics. We're going to provide you with a quick and easy mobility and postural strengthening routine that you can perform at your desk. Feel free to join along today. But if you feel any pain with any of these, please stop and reach out to us directly so that we can support you in whatever way is possible. And although we do not anticipate any technical issues today, please be patient if any issues should arise as we navigate working through this technology. A little housekeeping stuff. Throughout the webinar, we want to hear from you. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to let us know your thoughts in the Q&A feature. To find where that is, please take a moment to hover your mouse at the bottom of your screen. You'll see a Q&A option pop up, and that is where you'll put your questions. And we will do our best to address as many of them as we can during the webinar. It's best to put the questions in the Q&A. If you put questions in the chat feature, we'll be unlikely to see them or get to them during the webinar. And lastly, there will be times where Ryan and I are both going to be on the screen. For the best viewing experience, please select gallery view at the top right corner of your Zoom screen, so our Zoom frames are about the same size. With that being said, I'm going to bring Ryan on screen, and he can take it away. Hey, Ryan.
What's going on, Colby? I'll take it from here. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining. As mentioned, Colby just talked about, my name is Ryan Pena. I am a PT here at Spears Chambers Street location down in Tribeca. We're super excited to have you guys here with the presentation. Hope you guys learned a lot and get something out of it. So first thing we wanted to cover is what is ergonomics. You usually hear that word in the workplace when you're talking about furniture. So just a direct definition, ergonomics refers to the study of people's efficiency in their working environment. So the goals of ergonomics is to prevent musculoskeletal disorders and injuries, increase comfort, and increase efficiency and productivity, and overall just quality of life. All of our working environments are different, so creating the right ergonomic setup for everyone is going to be a little different. It's going to be a little bit more personalized. So because of that, today is going to be pretty general. It's not going to cover we're going to go over one specific thing that we know is ideal, but again, everyone's little setup is going to be different, so take that in mind. So what do we need for a good ergonomic setup? Simple answer. Consequences to a poor workstation setup, the immediate consequences: overuse of musculature, fatigue, and pain. The more long-term consequences of a bad setup include tight and weak muscles, decreased productivity, long-term pain, decreased participation, and really just preventing us from the things that we like doing most. So before we get started on proper ergonomic setup, I know we were all waiting for it. I want to emphasize that, again, there's no one perfect position or setup for anyone. If there's one thing that I want everyone taking away from today's presentation, it's this: it's movement is key. Throughout the day, we should be changing our position. So walking around, grabbing a drink of water, grab a light snack, talk to your neighbor, get up and, if you're on the phone, get up and walk around. Don't stay seated at your desk. Again, we're going to try to show you a good position to try to maintain, as well as some stretches and exercises that can improve your mobility and posture. But remember, change in position is actually good for you, and no one position will be perfect for everyone all day. So if any position, stretch, or exercise we cover during today's presentation causes you any discomfort, pain, we advise you not to continue with it. If you're currently experiencing any pain, you maybe feel due to poor posture or bad ergonomic setup, we recommend you schedule an appointment at one of our many clinics across New York, and we can have an ergonomic assessment and kind of talk to you about some issues that you might be having. So with that, I'm going to bring up Spear's ergonomic guidelines that we recommend for a good sitting and standing setup. So this first one, I'm going to go through this a little quickly, but don't worry because we're going to go through each item in more detail in a bit with Colby. In addition, all this information is available to you on Spear's website, and we will actually be sending it to you at the end of the presentation as well. So don't feel like you have to write this down or anything. So with that, let's get started with our office chair guidelines. So again, very briefly, seat height. So you want knees at the same height as your hips, and the feet should be flat supported on the floor. If your seat is too high and your feet are dangling, we're gonna go over some tips of what you can do to kind of help that. Seat depth, so how far you sit back into that chair. We want about 1 fist distance between the back of your knee and the edge of your chair. So that's about 2 to 4 inches. Seat back, you want a slight curve to kind of support the low of your back. You'll notice we all have a slight arch in the low of our backs. We want a nice curve in the chair as well. We're gonna go over some things that you can do if you have a flat chair, some tips you can do. And then armrests. You want armrests equal between both sides. You want them parallel to the floor. If they're preventing you from scooting under your desk, that can be a bit of an issue. So we can talk about some tips about that. And you want about a 90 degree in that elbow. So that perfect right angle. Arm should be hanging just by your sides. And then we're going to move on to our desk guidelines. So here we're going to talk about keyboard to start. You want keyboard positioned at elbow height. So again, that 90 degree angle. As your elbows come down, you want them kind of flush with that forearm. You don't want you want it flat or tilted away. You don't want it bent up. That's going to put additional stress right here on the bottom of your wrist, which can cause some issues later down the line. So you want it either flat in line or slightly tilted away. You'd want to try not to anchor your wrists on the edge, on the corner of your desk, because that firm pressure right there, that point can put a little bit of pressure on the wrist, which again can cause some issues later down the line. And you want to keep that wrist in neutral alignment. Neutral alignment being forearm straight, your wrist should go right in line with that. You don't want it bent up. You don't want it bent down too much. Again, bent down is going to put too much stress up here. Bent up is going to put a lot of stress right here. We have a lot of nerves going through. You can end up getting some numbness and tingling up in those fingers. The mouse we want positioned at elbow height as well. Elbows at that 90 degree angle, positioned adjacent to the keyboard. So you don't want to be moving your arm too much as you're working. Avoid any sort of wrist or palm rest. And we got a couple of questions on that. So we'll kind of cover that a little bit later. And you want to avoid excessive gripping. So your hand is also in that neutral position, just kind of naturally how it falls. You don't want anything too large or anything too small where you have to cup around it. Monitor should be about an arm's length away. So for me right here, if I stick my arm out front, that is where I want my monitor to be. You want to be placed directly behind the keyboard and the mouse, and the top of the screen should be at eye level or slightly below. And we'll kind of talk about that in a bit as well. Again, this is a brief overview. I'm going to invite Colby on screen now. We're going to go through these guidelines a little bit more together and in detail. Again, all this info will be available on our website. Now that I have Colby on screen with me, we're going to go through each of these points together. We encourage you to join along with us, whether you're at home or work, wherever you may be. Again, everything today, if anything causes you discomfort, just refrain from that position for now. And again, just as a reminder, gallery view is best to view both Colby and myself. What's going on, Colby? Looks like you got a good setup there. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we want to talk about, it's a 90-90-90 rule. So when I say 90-90-90, I'm talking about 90 degrees. So if Colby's facing his desk, first 90 degree angle we're going to look at are his hips. So you'll notice Colby's trunk is going to sit right over his hips. If he's leaned back too much, that could cause a little bit of discomfort in his low back. So we want him to come a little bit further forward. We want that trunk lined up right over his hips. And then going further down, we're going to look now at his knees. So you'll notice Colby's knees, if he's stuck out a little bit further, that can put a little bit more stress on the front of his legs. So we want Colby to scoot a little bit further forward. So those knees are bent right at that 90 degree angle. And the last 90 degree angle we're talking about is at Colby's feet. So if Colby's scooted back or he's got his heels dragged under his desk, that degree is going to be a little bit off. We want to keep that as neutral as possible. So Colby's going to bring his feet forward, keep those ankles right under his feet, under his knees, and make sure that that's at that direct 90 degree angle. Looks good, Colby. If that is not your case, and let's say, so Colby's seat height right now is positioned perfectly for him. Let's say you have a chair that is too high, too low, and it ends up throwing off your 90-degree angle somewhere. Obviously, first thing that we can do, an adjustable chair is best because that way it allows you to lower down. It'll allow Colby's feet to rest firmly on the floor and prevent any of his degrees from going off. If you don't have something like that, what Colby could do is he could slide like a book, a shoebox, something under his feet that would allow his feet to rest perfectly if your seat is too high. Obviously for Colby, that's a little bit, oh, that actually works pretty well for Colby there. Looks good, Colby. How's it feel?
Feels great, even better.
Good. Again, so now going down to the thighs, your thighs should be just supported by the seat of the chair. Again, we want about 2 to 4 inches between the bend of our knee and the edge of the chair. So Colby's got a perfect amount right there. You can kind of see that space right between, it's about 1 fist. Let's say your chair is too deep or your thighs are a little bit shorter, just maybe you're a shorter person. What Colby could do, he could grab something and sneak it behind his back that would then still be supporting his back and bring his knees a little bit further forward so that he still has that gap. You can also, this tip could also be used in the car. Let's say your car seat is a little deep and you end up having to rest your legs and they're sticking out a little bit. You could stick something behind your back just to bring yourself a little bit further forward. Again, so your knees are bent at 90 and you have a little bit of space between the bend of your knee and the edge of the chair. Again, hips should be at 90 degrees and slightly rolled forward. So what we kind of mean here, you can kind of see Colby leaning back a little bit. What we want Colby to do is just roll his hips forward so he's got more of an upright posture. Again, a good office chair should support that and should kind of force you a little bit into that forward roll with your hips. Big reason here, being slouched back like that can end up putting a lot more pressure on your upper trunk, on your neck, which is something we want to avoid, obviously. Arms should be rested by the sides and brought slightly forward. So again, almost like the 90-90 rule, this one can almost be incorporated in that. We want Colby's arms to be bent at 90 degrees. Let's say his monitor, his keyboard is a little bit forward. We want to bring that slightly forward. The one thing we want to avoid with the arms is Colby's arms too far back. So like, let's say his keyboard is really, really close to him and he keeps his chair scooted super far in and his elbows are bent beyond that 90 degrees. What that can do is end up putting a lot of pressure that runs back here on the back of your elbow. We have a couple nerves that run back there. Constantly being in that position right there can end up putting some pressure on those nerves and ultimately result in some of that numbness and tingling that we might get if you fall asleep on your arm or something like that. So we want to keep those arms at 90 degrees or slightly in front of us. Moving on to the computer setup and the monitor. So Colby's got his computer monitor just slightly below his eye vision, which is perfect. So we either want that top of that monitor to be right at eye level or slightly below. So you can see Colby's got a slightly raised up monitor. He's using an external keyboard, which is great. We'll kind of get into laptops. I know I'm on a laptop right now. Colby primarily uses a laptop. I'm sure a lot of you guys at home are using laptops. Laptops, by definition, cannot be ergonomically correct just by the way they're built. But this is a quick and easy way that Colby's fixed that. So he's got that raised up laptop and he's got his external monitor, which allows him to stay in a good ergonomic position while also keeping that monitor at the height that he needs it to be. Continuing along, if you don't have that big setup also there that Colby has, you could also just raise your laptop up on a couple books. Very easy fix to make if you don't have that nice raised up tool that Colby's got there. Going through all these things, again, I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the perfect desk setup, which will be hard to attain, especially if you're working from home, you know, given the current climate, global pandemic. I think it's important for us to shift our idea of more into a movement focused work setup rather than a static setup. So no one setup is going to be perfect. The key is to try to have ourselves in a good ergonomic position and follow the guidelines that we just covered. But most importantly is to constantly be moving. So I would advise Colby, you know, that's a great setup that he just had, but moving to a standing position. You know, sometimes I have patients, if they're constantly sitting and they don't have access to a standing desk, I'll have them take their chair out and just kneel. So Colby could move his chair, he could get down on one knee, he could switch knees. You could get rid of the chair and move in a physio ball, those big balls that people sometimes sit on. But just switching your position is great. That's the most important thing. So with all that, I'm going to hand things over to Colby. He's going to kind of cover a more standing desk setup, which is very similar. Colby, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. So as Ryan's going to set up his version of a standing desk right now. And unfortunately, he doesn't have an external monitor. But if you're, say you have a laptop and you have a standing desk, at the end of the day, laptops cannot be ergonomic by their design. Like Ryan said, they seldom work with standing desks, but I'm going to try to give you some small tips a little bit later on how to deal with that. But as far as standing desk goes, as you can see, all you have to do is raise your desk up if it adjusts, or what Ryan did is he took a cardboard box. If you can stack anything that raises up the monitor or raises up the location of your laptop, that'll be perfect. As you can see, his arms are not shrugging up towards his shoulders, and he's maintaining a relative 90-degree angle right at that elbow, at the crease of his elbow. His wrists aren't completely extended out. He has a good neutral wrist, and he is nice and relaxed. One of the things here, if I was to adjust it at all, if he could get an external keyboard, that could be even better. And if he could raise that laptop up even more, we would have a perfect situation. But at the end of the day, like we've been saying all day, movement is key. The way I like to put it is motion is lotion. So frequency of movement during the day is the most important factor in avoiding any musculoskeletal problems that can be caused by poor posture. I found that setting a posture break reminder for myself on my phone or laptop every hour, just to move around, get up out of the chair, as Ryan was saying earlier, grab a glass of water. If you're on the phone, maybe even taking your phone calls standing up if you're sitting all day. These breaks every hour have helped me feel looser throughout my day. All right, and with that being said, we're going to take you through a quick desk mobility routine. We'd highly suggest you incorporate these into 1 or 2 of your posture breaks every day. Feel free to follow along, and you can check today's posture break off of your list. All right. So I'm going to have Ryan explain some of the exercises as I perform them.
Awesome. Thanks for that info, Colby. So we're going to get started. A couple of exercises. Again, these are great to do once a day. If you don't get to them, especially if you're feeling tight, if you've been sitting, if you notice you've had a long meeting, 2-hour meeting, you need to take a little bit of a break. These are going to be great to kind of help loosen things up. The first one we're going to go over is thoracic rotation. So when I say thoracic, that involves that mid part of your spine. We've got the 3 parts: cervical up to the neck, thoracic in the mid back, lumbar down low. So this one's going to be a thoracic rotation. So what Colby's going to do, he's going to start facing his desk, and he's going to have his hands at the edge. He's also going to want a slight bend in his hips. You're going to be wanting to stand with your feet planted. From here, Colby's going to rotate his arm up towards the ceiling and feel a nice stretch through your upper back as you rotate. You're going to hold it up there for maybe 3 to 5 seconds. Come on down, bring that hand back down towards the edge of the table, and then he's going to switch. He's going to bring that right arm up and rotate up and away. The big goal here is just kind of get those vertebrae moving, so those bones in our back, they can get stiff just while sitting all day. So it's a good one. You can kind of just do 10 on each side, 5 on each side. Good to just give yourself a little bit of a break. We recommend just doing 10 on each side. Again, about a 3 to 5 second hold as you bring those hands up. You can also do this exercise seated. I'll show you right here. In my chair right here, I can put my hands at my desk, bring my hand up, I'm feeling a good stretch, put that one back down and rotate up. Next we're going to do is very similar, but instead of being a thoracic rotation, it's going to be a lumbar rotation. So as we kind of talked about briefly, we've got a thoracic spine, so upper spine, as Colby's showing you, lumbar is going to be that your low back. So especially if you get tight there, this one's going to be a good one for you. So very similar to the last exercise, but on this one, instead of facing your desk, you want to turn so you're perpendicular to the desk and use your outside arm to try to look behind you as far as you can. So you're going to be in a staggered stance. You'll notice Colby has the leg that is closest to the table slightly forward. The leg that's further away is slightly behind. One hand on the table, and then he's just going to use that outside arm to just rotate back, hold it back there for a couple seconds, and bring it on right back down. Same as the last one, we can do about 10 on each side. Colby's finishing up his third one right here. He'll go ahead and turn the other way and show you the opposite side as well. So again, that staggered stance, his leg that's closest to the table is slightly in front, opposite leg slightly behind, and he's just going to rotate back. Feeling that stretch, Colby? All right, we got one more for Colby here. The next one he's going to do is just called a standing hip extension. So extension, just bringing that leg behind him. So now Colby's going to stand behind his chair. He can stand behind his desk as long as he's got something in front of him to kind of help support his balance. Definitely not a balance exercise. You want to stand right behind that chair or desk. And then all you're going to do is just keep that leg, one of your legs straight and bring it back straight behind. You're going to kick back one leg at a time. So you'll feel his glutes activate. So Colby's really going to squeeze his tush in the back. He's really going to feel those glutes. This one's a great one, especially since we're just sitting on our butt all day. If you're in a chair constantly, I know a lot of you guys are on desk jobs. So this one's going to be great. Activate those glutes, especially since we're just kind of sitting all day to wake those guys up a little bit. They can tend to fall asleep on us. You can do about 10 on each side, bringing it back. No need to hold these ones too long. 10 on the right, 10 on the left. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Colby. He's going to go over a couple more stretches and exercises for us.
Already feeling looser.
Nice.
All right. Thanks for explaining that, Ryan. So the first one that we're going to do is a standing quad stretch. So Ryan is going to perform this near his desk, near a chair, just something you can hold on to. Again, this is not a balance exercise. This is a stretching exercise. So what I want you to do is line up your shoulders, hips, and knees. And then I want you to grab your ankle, bring it up towards your butt. And I want you to feel a nice stretch right through that front of the hip. Depending on how high or how much you stretch, you might feel it a little bit upper in the upper hip. You might feel it a little lower, closer to the knee. Just depends where you're most tight. For this exercise, for any stretch in general, you want to hold it for 30 seconds. I would suggest setting a timer because I know I'm a personal offender of this is I count very fast when I'm trying to stretch. I'm just trying to get it done with. But what we have to do is set 30 seconds, count it out in your head, set the timer, and you'll get some good change in the muscle length after that. Perfect. And if you wanted to feel a stronger stretch, Ryan was doing it earlier, he can grab his foot instead of the ankle. So for this next one, yeah, see how he gets a little farther up. The next one I want to show you is a nice hamstring flow. So the first one Ryan can do is sitting. What he's going to do is he's going to place his heel right in front of him and straighten his leg. He's going to try to arch his back and bend forward at the hips until he feels a stretch in the back of the thigh. For this one, you don't actually have to touch your toes. So the arching in the back is actually what's going to cause his hips to tilt forward, his pelvis to tilt forward, which is going to help stretch the hamstrings on both ends. So for this one, again, he's going to hold it for about 30 seconds. You can switch sides. If you're not really feeling too much of a stretch with this one, what you can do is stand up, place one foot on the stool or a chair, or even if you have, books that you can put down on the ground. He's going to do the same thing. He's going to arch his back. Yeah, we'll raise the screen so you can see his back. Go ahead and arch the back. Then lean forward at the hips. And again, I would suggest doing this near a wall so it's more of a stretch than a balance. That way you can hold on to something if you need to. Right there, again, you should just feel this right in the back of the leg. Depending on if it's in your upper thigh or your lower thigh, just depends on where you're most tight, okay? So 30 seconds each side. And then 2 more. This next one you can do sitting. It's called, any of you do yoga, you might have heard of it before. It's a cat-cow. So Ryan's going to sit in his chair. And what he's going to do is he's going to slouch. And he's going to get real poor posture. He's going to try to get his spine as curved as possible. And then from there, he's going to arch his back, push his chest up and out. And he's going to hold that for about 3 seconds. And he's going to reverse that motion again and slouch. And you're just going to repeat this about 10 times. While he's rounding his back, he's bringing his belly button closer to the back of the chair. And then reverse it, bring that chest out. Think about arching your back, bringing your chest up and out. And for the last one, I really love this one. This one really hits your upper back and helps to reverse that slouch that we get throughout the day when we're working at a computer and gravity's kind of taking hold of our head and our upper back. This one is called a wall angel. So what Ryan's going to do is you can do this one sitting or standing. I prefer to do it standing. but he's going to lean up against the wall. So his lower back is nice and flat against the wall. From here, he's going to take his arms up into a goalpost position, and he's going to try to get his forearms flush to the wall. Now, for some of you, you might not be able to even get your forearm flush to the wall. And that's okay. Your exercise is just to try to get that forearm to touch the wall. While you're doing this, he's going to keep his lower back flat, and he's going to raise his arms straight up in the air. In this one, you actually might feel this in your upper back. You might also feel this in your shoulder blades. It kind of depends, again, on which one is more tight. So Ryan's going to do this about 10 times. He's going to try to go a little bit higher each time. And this whole time, he's keeping his forearms flush against the wall. This one is a difficult one, so only move through pain-free range of motion. So again, if you're getting any sharp pain, anything that doesn't really feel like you're stretching, then I would avoid going as high or just stopping because you might not be ready for it yet. That being said, that's all we have for today for the exercises. Remember to try to perform these once or twice a day during your posture breaks. It was a pleasure talking with you all today. And Ryan and I both we really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to hang out with us. And we're going to move into the Q&A portion. All right. So let's take a look at some of the questions. You guys have actually already submitted some questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. So one of the questions was, what is the best way to set up an ergonomic chair so you don't slouch after a while? And, I'll re-review this because I think this is super important. There's a couple things that you want to hit. You want to make sure you have a backrest to support your lower back. You want to make sure your feet are supported and they're flat on the ground. If your feet aren't supported, it kind of changes where your weight is. And you could get some pain kind of right in your tailbone. You might get pain into the spine because you get a lot of compression through there if you're sitting improperly. So make sure your feet are flat on the ground. I know a lot of us like to cross our legs, so make sure you're not crossing your legs. And again, at the end of the day, it's taking breaks. I urge you to try this for one day. Is every hour, try to get up, move around, see how you feel. If you feel great after a day of trying that, try it for another day. And just keep going and see how many days you can get in a row. And I think Ryan's going to take the next question.
Yeah, next question we got here. If you have a sitting/standing desk, how much time sitting versus standing do you recommend? Great question. And we touched on it a little bit, but great to review this one as well. Again, as Colby said, motion is lotion. So we don't want to spend too much time in one or the either. So something good to kind of do. I know Colby mentioned setting a timer, just making sure that he's not sitting down for too long, making sure he's taking those breaks. So let's say you're sitting for about 45 minutes, your timer goes off. When you return back to your desk, switch the desk setup, move to a standing desk. Once the 45 minutes sets off there, go take your break, do a lap, grab a coffee, grab a water, grab a snack, come on back, move back down to a sitting desk. So just making sure that you're changing positions. The body doesn't like being stuck in the same position for too long. That's why a lot of the time when we wake up in the morning, we always have to do like those big stretches. It's because our body has just gotten so tight from being in the same position for 8 to 10 hours. So the first thing we do, we want to wake up, we want to reach overhead, we want to stretch because everything is just so tight. So the important thing here, every 45 minutes, switch it up. There's no too long for one or the other. If you want to do an hour at each, that's completely fine. Just make sure that you're not at one for about, and I'd say anything over 2 hours, you want to start switching it up.
That's perfectly said. And even if you had that, remember, at the end of the day, if you have this perfect setup, you have the best chair, you have the best desk, you have, you're really fit and you're doing all this, you can still have problems if you're sitting at the desk for 8 hours straight. So remember, take the breaks. If you're going to take anything from this, take breaks every 45 minutes to an hour. The next question that I'm seeing is, my wrists are aching from typing. And funny enough, this never happened when I was in the office. Is there a product that I should use to place with the keyboard and my mouse? There is. So what I would do is I would suggest that you buy a comfortable wrist rest that keeps your wrist in neutral. So what we mean by neutral, again, completely flat. You don't want any extension or bringing your hand back, and you don't want your hand too far forward. It's actually okay for you to have a little bend in the wrist, but nothing too major where you're typing like this. This wouldn't even be comfortable for anybody, I'm sure. But a lot of times our wrists rest on the desk and then we type this way. What I want you to try to do is get something that lets you type while your wrist is completely flat. And same thing for the mouse. A lot of people forget that with your mouse, because of the shape of a mouse, your hand is actually always extended. So try to get a mouse or try to get some sort of mouse pad that can keep that wrist nice and neutral when you're working.
There's another question. I don't reach the floor sitting on my chair and sit on the edge of my chair. Should I get a footrest? Quick answer, yes, definitely get a footrest. If your feet are not touching the floor, you should definitely have something that lifts off from the ground. Again, whether it be a shoebox, a couple textbooks, whatever it might be, that allows your feet to be in that 90-degree angle, resting comfortably. If they're hanging down like this, you're going to end up with some ankle problems. It's going to put additional stress, bringing you forward, putting it on your low back. You definitely don't want that. We covered this a little bit earlier as well. So if your chair is too deep and you need to be a little bit further forward, make sure that you have something behind your back that's still supporting your low back. So if your chair is super, super deep, and if you sit all the way back in it, your legs are almost propped up, that's okay. Bring something like a towel roll. You could roll up your jacket. Anything really works. A little pillow would work. Slip it behind your back so that you're just right at the edge. Again, that fist just behind your knee and the edge of that chair. And then if your feet are dangling, bring something up. A footrest is a great option. Definitely 100% get something to support those feet.
Perfect. And then I'm seeing, we'll hit a couple more questions. So one of them is just to touch back on the laptop and just remind us about the height of the laptop and how to determine how high it should be. And so remember, at the end of the day, laptops can't be ergonomic, but not all of us are going to get external monitors, I understand. So what you want to do is you want to try to bring the laptop up to you. What I mean by up to you is I want you to bring your arm straight out in front of you. The laptop should be, the top of the screen should be about level with that forearm. If you're holding your arm straight out in front of you, don't go any too low, but you want that screen to be at eye level or a little bit lower. If it's too low, then your head is going to look down and that's going to put a lot of tension in that. So what I would suggest, again, arm straight out in front of you. Make sure that this computer screen is, you're able to touch your computer screen first off, and that also the computer screen is about level with where your hand is, or even just slightly above.
Yeah, that's a great one. And again, tough to do in every situation. I know a lot of us are working from home right now. Something that I've told people to do that can't combat this, they're like, you know what, I don't have an external monitor. I don't have something that will lift up, and I end up typing up here. So a simple thing that you can do, sit in your chair nice and proper, as if you were at a good ergonomic setup. Keep that head in neutral. And if you can, try to just look down. So you don't want your head down here looking straight at your screen. You're going to end up putting a lot of stress back here on the back of your neck. So you want to keep that head in neutral as well. And then just look down with your eyes. Kind of just let them kind of sag down a little bit. That'll help protect your neck. You want to keep everything else in line. And then looking at the Q&A feature that you guys, looks like we have 2 questions right now from 2 different people on what about sitting cross-legged? An excellent question. So as you can imagine, I'm sure that everyone kind of already knows the answer to this. Sitting cross-legged, not ideal. Do I do it? Absolutely. Again, how long do I do it? I probably have my legs crossed for a maximum of 4 minutes before I take them off. And I'm sure a lot of you can imagine if you keep it up there for long enough, you might start feeling some symptoms in your hip, whether that be numbness or tingling, tightness, you know, any sort of pain kind of going through your glutes or your hips. That being said, it's not a bad thing to cross your legs as long as you're not sitting in that position for a prolonged period. If you're in a 2-hour meeting and your legs are crossed the entire time, some of your muscles are going to get tight, other ones are going to get weak, and it's going to form a little bit of a muscle imbalance, which you definitely want to avoid. So it's definitely good. Like I said, I do it for about 4 minutes max. For me, it's a great stretch. I bring my knee up and I feel a great stretch back here in my glute, but I'll sit here for maybe about 3 to 4 minutes. I'll recross my leg over this way. If you're crossing like this, again, I would say not crossed over 4 to 5 minutes. After that, it's going to start putting some pressure down here. You're going to start compressing some nerves. Muscles are going to get tight. Other ones are going to get weak. So it's okay to cross your legs. I definitely do it myself. You want to avoid doing it for prolonged periods of time.
Perfect. And then I'm seeing one. All right. So to clarify, it looks like somebody's coming back in. To clarify, more sitting cross-legged, kind of as if you're on the floor. So if you're on the floor, let me see if I can kind of mimic this, where I think she's talking about sitting like this.
Yeah, I think so.
So for this one, you actually can have pretty good posture if you're able to sit upright. A lot of times people will sit cross-legged like this, and then they will slouch, and they keep on slouching, and that's actually you'll probably get some pain in your lower back. I can already feel it. So crossing your legs like this is fine as long as you're also having good posture. Now, this is where the whole posture break comes in. So if you're sitting like this and you feel yourself after 30 to 45 minutes that you're starting to slouch, I would probably change position, sit in a chair, get up, stand up, do one of those exercises that we did today, stretch out, and then you can go right back to the ground. But it's not a terrible position to be in as long as you're keeping your weight even throughout your legs.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Great explanation, Colby. We also have one referencing something earlier in the presentation. Colby's monitor seemed to be tipped a little bit forward. So Colby, you can go and head on back to your desk and we'll kind of explain that one. So what that kind of ended up doing, as we know, those laptops bend, that allowed having Colby's laptop slightly bent, or that bottom part bent, allowed him to bend it in a way that allowed his laptop monitor screen to be slightly higher. So again, the priority here, whether that laptop is bent to a 90-degree angle or it's slightly angled a little bit higher, you just want to make sure that that laptop monitor screen is at the proper height. So Colby slanted it a little bit, allowed it to be a little bit higher for him. That made it at that eye level that he wants. So as long as it's sitting at that eye level or slightly below, that's perfect. So yeah, whatever works best there. If Colby wanted it completely at that 90-degree angle, that would be fine. It just might be a little bit lower, which is going to end up him maybe having to look down a little bit or look down with his eyes, which is perfectly okay. You just want to make sure it's sitting at that eye level. All right.
Awesome.
That is all right. The live questions we got.
All right. Other than that.
Yeah. So we hope today's talk was valuable and that you learned a lot about ergonomics, good postural exercises. We hope it was super valuable for you guys. As a reminder, my colleague is Colby Choi. He's at our Midtown West 44th location. And my name is Ryan Pena. I'm down here at our Tribeca location. We have clinics all across town, uptown, downtown. Feel free to jot down our contact info so you can reach out to us directly with any questions. Our emails are on there. If you had a question about this presentation, you can feel free to email either Colby or myself. At Spear, we treat a wide array of conditions from head to toe. As a reminder, we're open for in-person visits as well as telehealth sessions. Should you feel that you could benefit from some individualized guidance or treatment, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of us. And we will personally coordinate, you being set up. You'll see right there, we have the spearcenter.com/GSG for you guys. So that's your guys' direct way to make an appointment with one of us. Thank you guys so much for spending time with us today. Busy work day, we appreciate it. We hope you enjoyed our webinar and wish you guys all the best. Be well.
Have a great day and weekend.